from the cloudy Copenhagen, and welcome to the training session Energy Efficiency eTraining to Mozambique, hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency. My name is Begonia, and I'm working as a research assistant at the Copenhagen Center, and I will be the moderator for today's training session. A couple of things before we move to the main content of our training. This session is going to be about 90 minutes long, including time for Q&A at the end. In case you cannot stay until the end or want to get back to our presentations, all the materials and recording of the whole webinar will be available online in a few days on the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System. And we have many other webinars and information there. Have a look. I will give you more information in a few minutes. Before we start discussing about today's training session, I would like to inform our attendees that we comply with the General Data Protection Act, also known as GDPR. This means that your personal data, such as name, email, workplace, is safely processed and stored, and all of your rights pursuant to the GDPR are respected. You have full access to the data being processed about you, and at any time, you can request that inaccurate data be deleted or rectified. For access or further information, please contact with the people that are presented here. A few things about the Copenhagen Center. The center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as energy efficiency hub for sustainable energy for all initiative. The center has an established network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders to help accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency activities. Now, I would like to briefly introduce you to the speakers of today's training session. Santiago Santaclara is an energy engineer with focus on energy technology and sustainability. He currently works at UNEP-DTU on analysis of best practices to study their standardization and replicability, implementation of feasible energy efficiency solutions, integration of renewable energy and smart solutions in both energy generation, distribution, and building to help reduce the energy consumption and the related emissions. Our second panelist of today's training session is Xianli. She works as a senior economist, and her work at UNEP-DTU focuses on designing and enabling policies and programs for energy efficiency improvement and climate change mitigation. Finally, I would like to inform that you can send us your questions during the presentations, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can at the end. Please don't forget to mention the name of the panelist the question is for. Now, I would like to give the floor to our first panelist, Santiago.
Thank you, Begonia, and good morning from Copenhagen to all the participants of this webinar. As Begonia already said, my name is Santiago, and I work in the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency as research assistant, mainly on the topic of energy efficiency. Today, I'll be the first speaker on this webinar about the water energy nexus. And how to unlock the energy efficiency in municipalities. First, a bit of agenda. We will go first quickly a bit about what's the current status of the overall water sector, and we will focus on what's the water supply or distribution stage on the whole cycle of water. We will move then into a bit of what's potential energy inefficiencies and opportunities in existing water supply systems. So mainly the energy efficiency part of the water energy nexus. And then we will move into the water part or the water savings, which actually have larger potential for energy efficiency. Finally, I will introduce a bit of the tools we have to analyze potential opportunities for energy efficiency, and the Q&A at the end. Well, so first, we're going to start a bit of the current water sector status and what are the challenges that we, as a society and the utilities are facing or will face in the next years. As we all know, water availability is a main driver for sustainable development. Existing interdependencies between the water and the energy sectors are very strong and actually should be addressed as a whole, commonly known as the water energy nexus. In the one hand, we have the energy consumed in the water sector represents only like around 4% globally of the energy consumed. And that means that normally it's not seen as a priority to unlock energy efficiency and to promote good practices on water use. Still, this percentage is quite variable country to country or region to region. Even inside one city, it changes a lot. As an example, in Japan, where most of the waters are gravity fed, this number only represents 1% of the energy consumed. In Spain, it's a bit higher than the worldwide average, it's 5%. But in California, where they have to pump the water, drinkable water, long distances is up to 20% of the total energy consumed in the state. In the other hand, we also have the water consumption, which is projected to increase up to 40% by 2040. This increase even higher in developing countries. As a matter of fact, the World Bank estimates that future water scarcity, mainly due to climate change, can cost some regions up to 6% of their GDP by 2050. And all comes to regulation, how we promote efficiency. No? So authorities play a crucial role in both issues, both promoting energy efficient components and also good use of water through water efficiency, as climate change does not respect any sector nor border. Moving a bit into the specific of the different stages and cycles of the water system. The water supply systems or distribution systems are the intermediate stage of the water cycle. And normally the one that consumes the most, on average 50 to 60% of the energy consumed in the whole cycle is used at the distribution system. Any inefficiency at this stage, of course, will have a larger impact in the overall cycle as the other stages are tied to the consumer's demand, which is located in the supply stage. But why is this so important? Basically, energy is the largest controllable expenditure in the water utilities. A high electricity demand can lead to unsustainable cost of operation, affecting directly to either the public finance, budgets, or tariffs for final users. But best practices have demonstrated that specific individual energy efficiency actions and water efficiency actions can bring savings of up to 40% of energy and payback lower than 5 years. So let's move into what's more specific energy efficiency opportunities and why actually we shouldn't look into individual opportunities, but more into a holistic approach on how we can bring up together a joint solution for several aspects of the water supply systems. So first of all, how can we measure the potential impact of specific energy efficiency actions? Indicators such as the energy index help us understand what's the existing relation between the production of water or water pumped and the energy consumed to pump this water, providing us with a baseline for comparison of more efficient solutions or actually to understand if the existing system is already an efficient or a good one. The potential benefits of specific energy efficiency actions can be then benchmarked against the current situation, analyzing both energy efficiency increase, reduction of energy consumption, and of course, what matters more, financial savings or equivalent greenhouse gases emissions or others. Only one thing about this factor or this indicator is that needs to be normalized, that we will see later. Still, energy efficiency and water efficiency actions should not be studied individually. Why? Because as we can see in the picture in the right, the inefficiencies through the whole system are taken or constrain the next step. So started by the end, reducing what's the water losses, would reduce what's the energy required to in the pumps, which reduce what would be the energy in the electric motor, which would reduce what's the energy extracted from the grid. So an increase in the overall efficiency of the system and a reduction in the capacity needed would facilitate the unlocking of better payback periods and more reliable systems. Normally, the largest inefficiencies are easy to spot or are just directly found in pumps, mainly working out of their design points or because of a lack of maintenance and being aged. So efficiency decreases quite a lot. But also we can find it in electric motors with the lack of variable speed drives. So we can also find penalties from the power supplier due to low power factors or lower efficiencies on transformers. Normally, the issue is also that it's quite spread the fallacy that energy efficient components are too expensive. But as a matter of fact, the purchasing price of any of these components doesn't represent more than 5 to 10% of the cost of the whole component during its operation on its lifetime, being the rest electricity prices and maintenance costs. So that even though these more efficient components might cost up to 25 to 50% more as initial investment, the savings that they would bring us would impact much more the final finance of the system. As we can see also in the table, the individual energy efficiency increase would be quite significant. For example, in this hypothetical case for transformers or the water pump. Whereas if we take the overall or a holistic approach where we would implement a replacement or a improvement of the efficiency of the different components of the whole system, we would reach a 30%, which it's more significant and could also help us to cover the payback period with of some components that are less would bring less efficiency into others that are much have a much bigger impact and would cover or allow us to enable us to purchase these other components. As we were talking before, how can we compare existing situations with potential improvements through the use of energy indicators? This needs to be, or these indicators is not just about what's a number, or what's the water produced divided by the energy consumed. We need to use some kind of scales that help us classify the obtained results as either good or bad. And then from that result, compare or benchmark with potential solutions or potential projects that we may have to set. So basically, if national regulation is not yet available, we can use international best practices. For the normalized index, which means basically bring up what's the energy index to a common scale of pumping over 100 meters. We can either use the International Water Association indicator, pH5, or the Portuguese standard, which follows the same as the Iowa from AA13AB. Both indicators are basically an energy index that joint efficiency for the motor and the pump, so the motor pump set. And these indicators can be used to classify these sets as a whole by either good, average, or bad performance as in a traffic light. Assuming then this some international, for example, motor efficiencies as could be an IE3, which is an efficient electric motor ready available in most of the markets, we could extract what would be the minimum pumping efficiency that we would require to achieve what it's considered as a best practices to having a good performance. Of course, these calculations are good for light touch or rapid assessment, but in deeper analysis, we would have to develop a more detailed analysis on what's the pump operation as the load variation during day, night, peak hours can influence a lot the design of these components. Still, these indicators really help us to understand what we have and trace or track any evolution or moving from where we are or where we will be in the future. Also, what about the total cost and investment return? As we were talking before about being this efficient or more efficient devices more expensive, no? How can we define also what's a good or a bad investment? The cost, of course, it's 100% dependable on what's the local market, unless we aim to purchase something that it's more efficient and is not available in the market. So we would have to go into a foreign country or some bilateral agreements that may exist. A good way to select among different project options and to present to either financial institutions, banks, is to use or set up a limit or payback period. And for example, defining either a limit of either 3 to 5 years to present to them, or either 6 years in case of transformers. But also to think about other factors to take into account is not only the payback period, but it could be the age of the components, being this far beyond the limit of their lifetime, or also very low efficiencies that are already, even though the savings are lower, it really constrains the grid, as it could be a lower 46% of motor pump set efficiency. A bit of examples now. As I was saying before, in energy efficiency and water supply systems is not only about one simple component or even one utility at a time. It might happen that we identified several motor pump sets or several components throughout a region or a country that have the potential to be replaced. So we can make a joint effort to purchase more than one at a time and gain power of negotiation. One really good example is the energy efficiency increase in water supply systems in Guyana. The national water utility, together with the Inter-American Development Bank, studied what was the existing efficiency in several pumping stations throughout the country. And they identify where the energy efficiency opportunities were higher to alleviate both the utilities finance and the pressure on the national grid. In total, they replaced 34 motor pump sets, which were equivalent to 25% of the electricity consumed in the water sector in the country. The overall energy efficiency was increased by 29%, with an annual savings of around $700,000 and payback periods of really, really low payback periods of less than 3 months because of the existing inefficiencies. But so far, we are well talking about water, the water sector, and we are focusing on energy efficiency, which is the topic, no? But actually, the water efficiency matters, and matters even more, because up to 2/3 of the potential savings that we can achieve in a water supply system comes through water efficiency. So saving water also means saving energy, which is what we aim here. So first we need to understand a few terms. We call non-revenue water to all the water that is produced but not billed, with the one exception of what's the authorized consumption not billed. This is water provided to social groups in risk of exclusion, or to water public areas, or firefighters, among others. So we define this as an amount of water that is acknowledged by the utility that is being consumed, but we will never be charged for its consumed. So then we can really simplify what's the non-revenue water to two different terms. A first one, physical losses, are these related to leakages during the water transportation. The problem with the physical losses is that because of the pipes being buried, normally we don't realize, or we cannot see that a pipe is broken unless it's like a really a burst that makes the water come out of the ground. So it's kind of an invisible loss that without better control systems, we will never find out what it is. But we also have a commercial losses, which is water that is being consumed and that for different reasons is not billed. This can be either because, for example, the utility is not being able to, through the census, to reach the clients, or the clients consuming, having illegal connections to the distribution network. And as a matter of fact, also the lack of presence of tariffs that really reflect the cost of energy, tariffs that charge you the consume of water you did. So when you use metering, so the user pays by the water it consumes, it starts having a knowledge of what's the real value of the good of the water. And as a matter of fact, it's assumed that the introduction of metering systems or micro metering systems on final uses in water could bring up to a 25% of water consumption reduction, meaning that at 25% of energy would be then saved. In order to avoid both water scarcity and the negative impacts of climate change, a holistic approach that takes into account both water and energy is needed. An approach is the water demand management, which aims to conserve water by influencing demand. It involves the application of selective incentives to promote efficient and equitable use of water. Could be public campaigns to create awareness of real cost of the water, as we were saying before, new tariffs that reflect the real cost of water, and the introduction of metering, among others, as we were mentioning. Water demand management is guided by economic efficiency, same as energy efficiency, so that we can achieve equity and access to it. This is perfectly suitable to include in water action plans with energy management programs that promote the automatization of the systems through SCADA systems, achieving then a better control that help us to reduce the physical water losses, and the implementation of preventive maintenance to avoid these physical leakages. And of course, the introduction of metering, so we can reduce the consume of water per capita, we can avoid the thief of water, and we can avoid more leakages. Another good example on a more water energy nexus approach is the SANASA study in Brazil. Basically, between the year 2000 and 2008, the city of Campinas developed a quite successful energy program that achieved an increase in tap water connections by 22% without additional energy requirements. This increase came especially from the connection of areas with risk of social exclusion, reaching a 98% of connections in the city. In some of the plants inside the utility pumping plants, up to 30% reduction in energy consumption and actually 20% of the capacity contracted to the power system were achieved only with the introduction of variable speed drives and less than 4 years of payback period. To sum up a bit on what's here, the potential for energy efficiency and water efficiency, the joint effort to improve both can revert more energy savings due to the existing interlinkages between energy and water, bringing more financial savings, resilience against climate change due to water savings, and reduction of equivalent greenhouse gases emissions. And of course, the holistic approach also bring us or help us with shorter payback periods and enable us to achieve solutions that otherwise individually could not be feasible. Finally, a bit of how can we help in the identification of potential projects or energy efficiency and water efficiency opportunities. We have several tools, both for individual components and holistic approach. In this case of energy and water, the tool we have takes into account both the energy components, being these motor, pumps, transformers, and the water side of the system. So being this water pumped, water consumption, water bill, but also we could have or help into the study of the individual components. So individual transformers tools, individual motor tools, and individual motor pump set tools are available. Of course, this is a rapid assessment level tools, and the inputs are quite simple, being this the energy consumed, the electricity prices, and in the case of this with water, what's the total water pumped and charged. So we can do balance on the opportunities of introducing different actions. That's for my side. So I think now is Xianli's time. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot to Santi for a very interesting presentation. I will continue what's left from Santi about talking about the challenges, options, and some international support on this topic. First, the global water system. We have some overview, the overall picture. What Santi mainly talk is about the urban water supply system. But water is also used for other purpose. If globally we can see over the past 100 years, the global water usage is increased by around 6 times and is continually growing about 1% per year due to population growth, economic development, and also lifestyle and urbanization. That's kind of different factors. In fact, urban water supply is only a small proportion of the total water usage by human societies. If you think globally, it's around 70% of the water use is actually for agriculture, especially irrigation, and 15% for the energy sector. Is mainly for the many, especially thermal power plants, they need cooling, and also 5% for other industrial uses. And in the end, that's around 10% for domestic use. At the same time, we need to consider around 15% of the globally the water energy, electricity is from hydropower. That means in the future, if the climate change or other situation changes, that's also both affect the water availability and also the availability of electricity. That's also the situation in many developing countries. People that lack access to clean drinking tap water and lacking access to electricity, and there's lack of coverage of sanitary system. That's also the water treatment. With the water treatment, that makes also makes a water issue, water shortage. In many cases, lack of clean water, even a bad situation. And that's because of this increasing climate change, global warming, and increasing different water uses. That's some competition for different uses. Also, it's a very water is heavy. We know it's require a lot of energy to move it, to transport the water. So it's also the water processing to purify it and transport it to pipes to or tunnels, channels to different parts of the country can use a lot of energy. And also drinking water typically needs a lot of treatment. And once if you can move the water to the right place and get it clean, it can make it more valuable. Then in most cases, after its use, you need to treat it again to release this into the system. The challenges, one is in the water planning, because there's many different uses. So often, like the municipal water utility, how much water available, it also depends on not only the total water available, that also depends on how the other sources uses for water. And also this because often water also shared regionally. It's not one city have a exclusive access to water source. Often other sectors, not only municipal water suppliers, there are also other users. You also need water, and other cities, other municipalities. So this kind of competition or sharing that makes it also difficult to planning. And often energy and water, there's a policy making and administration is often done by different government authorities in isolation, such as the regulation about energy and water prices. That's often made by the national government, and the pollution was need to be done to treatment before the wastewater is discharged by industries, by households. That's often national policies and legislation. And the infrastructure, energy and water, this especially municipal water, the pipes, the treatment often needs large investment. Also, that's the lock-in effect. Once the pipes are laid down and the facilities are built, they often have a use life of several decades or even longer. So that's why if you do not take the action quickly, once these facilities are built, it's very difficult. It costs a lot of money to retrofit them, to change them, fix them, and also energy production. This a lot depends on water because energy, the hydropower, and that's also the electricity, so water, and there's closely interlinked between water and electricity production. And also urban water, if you think about urban water systems, that's growing increasingly more complex because including the different decreasing fresh water availability and the allocation of environmental, there's also the pollution environmental requirements. Often in developed country cities or modern cities, they have several water flows. Once the rainwater, they have to find a way to get it away when there's storms. And that's also the fresh water, how to get the clean water to every household, every facilities, building, and the wastewater, how to get it away, and different kinds of wastewater to get it treated and also discharged into the environment. So these different water pipes under the ground, how to manage them. And often in many places, actually, the rainfall, the water supply industrial, that's a lot, the water sufficient, but often that the water supply, the quality of the water, make it necessary to give challenges to the water management system. Yeah, as I said, this energy, the water policies and project planning investment are often made by different authorities, different players. Often they do not talk to each other. When they do this, and it's difficult, that's one barrier to make it to tap into the opportunities. Often the water authorities, they only focus on water, energy authorities only focus on energy. So without this kind of the treatment, they only think about treatment. So when they do not work or coordinate with each other, that's make the system expensive and difficult to tackle the opportunities. In face of the future water shortfall, so cities basically have, or municipalities basically have three options. First is intensify the treatment. So increasing the production of a known resource to get more water out of a certain supply, or increasing water from other places. So that's also a solution. And in some dry places, you may have to resort to tap into dig deeper into the groundwater or even treatment of the seawater to make it to the clean water. That's also very energy intensive, cost a lot of energy. And actually, there's an existing technology. Whatever wastewater, they can recycle and treatment to clean water again. But that again is a big source, needs a lot of energy in the process. So for the future, to tap this opportunity, one is really the nexus thinking to integrate it planning both in the policies and in the project designing instead of each player or each policymaker only think about themselves in isolation. It's more integrated to think the whole process, how to save the energy, how to save the energy, save the water along the process to make and not reduce their usage. So make the also integrated most efficient technologies along the way, like treatment technology, smart meters, and the market. They use the price and the operation and new motors, pumps, PEPs to make the process more efficient. To assess the one to do the water planning or the project about prepare for the future. One step is the first step is you need to assess what's the local water availability, what's the surface water, what's the how much groundwater you can have, and also like you have where is the water additional source maybe a little further away, how much you get, and also desalination or the how you get it. This is an example of the city, how they do it. Also they need to think what's the cost, how where do they get the water and where is the user along the way, how to get there, where to do the treatment. So the costs are along the way to map this water usage, who is the users, and what's the after use, what's the wastewater, the quality, and how to treat that. So along the process, cities know when they do the planning, they need to do this kind of assess mapping of the water usage and the mapping of the different water sources that's available for them. And they also need to balance different factors. Consider water quality, different each water source, what's the quality of the water, and the water source reliability rate. Some water sources, maybe they are different. For example, the rainwater maybe sometimes is a cheap source, but maybe not so reliable. And sometimes in certain seasons, that's short of water, and also impact on land use. That's especially when you build a reservoir or build some channels that need access to land, maybe some even relocate some population, also investment. How much it cost for this source and for each town for clean water you want to get, how much will it cost? And also the energy consumption, how much energy we need. And also the environmental impacts. As I mentioned before, there's also the issue of population resettlement in some countries or that can be a very complicated system, and also public acceptance. For example, in some cases, the treated water or recycled water can be very clean, but maybe there's public acceptance. No one wants to use that for household water. And also the issue of vulnerability to climate change, to different water resources. So when cities do this kind of assessments, they need to think about different water sources and the different aspects in planning for future water facility, build the pipelines or where to build the water plants. They need to think about these factors. And to do this, first to motivate the action, and then to this whole circle of assess the system, identify what are the opportunities, and implement the measures, then assess what's the impact. Do you get the expected economic returns, additional clean water supplies, and also reduce the environmental energy impacts. And also one important is this integrated policy making, decision making for projects, consider all the different factors and acting now, because the water facilities, once they are built, the energy facilities, once they are built, they can have a very long use life. So that's why when it's better to do it now instead of waiting for the future. Internationally, there's a lot of coordination on the water system. One is the UN Water 2030 strategy. As you know, water is one of the Sustainable Development Goals for 2020. That's the SDG 6. And it's also that's UN Water. You have a lot of some different tools to. They have the report, global status report, and also how to support drinking water and sanitation, and also especially from 2005 to 2015, that's the UN Decade of Water. So that during that period, that's a lot of publications. International, there's also the Global Water Week every year. So that's also big conference they have every year. They come together to talk about this. So SDG 6, UN Water coordinates that. So they have also a lot of data, information, financing, governance, innovation, and capacity development. So they are coordinating this from these 5 aspects to support countries, cities to take actions on water, including the energy efficiency. And globally, how much of support is available, financial support is available for water systems? You can see globally in 2017, the latest data, it's around 10 billion US dollars. Some of it is in the ODA, that's grants, and some part is non-concessional loans or credits, and also some other funds. So internationally, there are also some financial resources for water, supporting countries' efforts in water. The World Bank, because of the water, the energy issue, the World Bank from 2014 to 2018 carried out this 5-year initiative called Thirsty Energy. So they have different take some actions, including identify synergies and quantifying the trade-offs between energy development and water use, and also piloting the cross-sectoral planning to ensure sustainability of energy and water investments, and also design some assessment tools and management frameworks to help governments coordinate the decision-making and mainstream water requirements into their energy planning. And they also kept some case studies in South Africa, China, and Morocco. Their main findings, water and energy nexus is very context-specific. It's difficult to do it one fit for all. Basically, every country, every city have their special situations. There are many win-win solutions, and infrastructure investment is very critical in the process to change that. There's also internationally some tools and guidance, including the GIZ. They have the water and wastewater companies for climate mitigation. The project, they have some also work in the Mexico, Thailand, Peru, and Jordan. You have some concrete action reports indicating how they do it, practice. And they also have this city to conduct over 20 cities worldwide to use this tool to have this pilot project. And also this energy performance and carbon emission assessment tool from this project. And they also have some report about linking carbon neutral and climate resilient water sector, the World Bank report, OECD report, and also the WRI, World Resource Institute. They all have many studies and reports on this sector, what's the global situation, how to, and the local measures, actions taken by different actors, how to do it in practice. So this, if you are interested, there's a lot of specific tools, reports on this issue. Thanks a lot. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Xianli and Santiago, for the very interesting presentations. Now I would like to introduce the Q&A session. And we have received some questions from the audience. I would like to start with the questions addressed to Santiago. The first question is as follows. What actions should be prioritized in the whole water supply system to improve the overall water and energy performance?
Based on best practices and our own experience, first is required to develop a full analysis of the utility under study to understand what's the weaknesses and the strengths. Once those are identified, still I would say that the actions regarding energy efficiency, so the replacement of devices, mean pumps, introduction of variable speed drives in the motors, or capacitors, the introduction of capacitors to upgrade the power factor due to their simplicity and lower payback periods and direct impact. That's like normally the first stage and easier to implement. Still, the integrated plan that we talked before for water management, as introduction of a more metering or control systems and like preventive maintenance, those are actions that will have a larger impact by means of water and energy consumption reduction, but they require larger periods for implementation. So there should be a kind of a balance, but I would go first for any energy efficiency action as motor pump sets. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Santiago, for your response. Another question we have received from the audience. If we have various potential projects, how can we select which of the systems to be upgraded? And this is also a question for you, Santiago.
Yeah, okay. Yes, as I was mentioning in my presentation, honestly, we shouldn't be constrained to implement just one system. We could develop not a program, but we could wrap up several pumping stations or water utilities at the same time. And the fact that some of them will be more efficient than other ones with lower payback periods would compensate those ones that have lower energy efficiency potential and higher payback periods. At the end, purchasing just one component as one pump or one motor might be difficult to present to a bank because of the volume. But when you have certain volume of different devices to be purchased, and you start having like an investment, a significant investment, you gain both more visibility to potential investors and also more power to negotiate with the manufacturers. So to summarize a bit, I would say that we should set up different scenarios with different, for example, payback periods, and for different payback periods, show what are the opportunities that we could bring to them, not constrain ourselves to just one project.
Thank you so much, Santiago, for the detailed response. Now I would like to introduce the questions that we have received for Xianli. And Xianli, the first question is as follows. There exist many good opportunities for improving the energy and water efficiency in urban water systems. What are the challenges of releasing these opportunities?
Thanks, Begonia. Yes, there are, as Santi's presentation clearly illustrated, there are many very good opportunities with short payback periods and a lot of environmental and social benefits for improving the energy and water efficiency in urban water systems. The main challenges of realizing these opportunities, as mentioned in the presentation, include the uncertainties of future water availability and also future water demand. Some water demand, like future industrial use, commercial use, that can be exact when will that happen, that can be a little difficult to project, and also the future water availability competition from others uses. Not only, as you can see, municipal urban water system actually is only a small share of the water use from a region, from a municipality scope. So that's why it's sometimes a little complicated. Also, the infrastructure This to build the infrastructure, the complexity of different pipes, water for water under the ground, and the huge investment you need to build such facilities, and also the future regulations, especially environmental regulations. And also there's the issue of the policy of planning different actors in the for the working in the area. So that also makes a lot of times it's quite challenging to really implement this project. That's why taking energy efficiency really when the planning of during the designing of the projects, during the retrofitting, that's really important to take not only the water, both water and energy into consideration to save water, save energy. That can really top. That's the benefits. We avoid the future intermittent water supply and reliable water supply. The impacts. So that's energy efficiency and water efficiency in the process really top priority.
Thank you so much, Xianli. And the last question we have received, also for you. Can you give us an example and tell us the various international support for improving energy efficiency in the urban water supply systems?
Yes, internationally there are many actors are active in the area as like the funding, that's international multi-development banks, and the multilateral donors, they are bilateral donor agencies. They are often interested in supporting such energy efficiency projects in water because that's also a very important social impact. If you give more access to more people clean drinking water, sanitation systems, and also the energy efficiency make such projects reducing the cost. So for the cities and get more energy access to more people, more water access to more people. So funding and also capacity building, information sharing. That's some decision making tools you can get from many authorities like the UN Water. They have a lot of resource on this topic. I have global study on this, like GIZ, the World Bank, a lot of different NGOs like WRI. They all have such reports as tools, and many are working on this area. So there's a lot of support if you really interested in such information. And also case studies from different municipalities, how they do it. That's really a lot of resources available. Maybe many cases countries are not aware of them.
Well, thank you so much, both Xianli and Santiago, for the detailed responses to the questions. And now, ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of this training session. I would like to say thank you to the panelists for the informative and interesting presentations, and to the audience for the active participation. We hope that the presentations will be beneficial for all stakeholders involved in energy efficiency. And thank you so much for your attention, and wish you a good day or night from Copenhagen.